Welcome to week 2 of descriptive writing, 3rd grade. This week we're focusing on awesome adjectives. Last week we talked about why we write with descriptive language. We discussed that when we write with descriptive language, we can paint a picture in our reader's mind, and that when we thought about books that we like to read or authors that we really like, that they use descriptive language to help us see the story in our mind. And if they didn't use that descriptive language, then we probably wouldn't enjoy the story quite as much or understand the story quite as well. So last week with our word choice, we focused on noteworthy nouns. This week we are going to focus on awesome adjectives. Now we're not going to forget about noteworthy nouns. It's still important to try and incorporate them. And nouns and adjectives work together. So we're going to be using adjectives along with nouns to create more detail in our writing. So to review about adjectives, adjectives describe. They can describe appearances, they can describe color, the condition of a person. So someone can be tender or clever or scared or smart. Those are all adjectives. They can describe feelings, good feelings, bad feelings, shapes, sizes, sounds, time, adjectives to describe time, when something happens, how fast it happens, taste and touch, and quantity, how many. So adjectives really can describe all of our 5 senses. How something looks, how something smells, how something tastes, how it sounds, and how it feels. Authors use adjectives to describe nouns or pronouns in their sentences, add more interest to their writing, and create a detailed picture in their reader's mind. An adjective modifies or describes a noun in a sentence. So if you're going to talk about a cat in your sentence, instead of just saying cat, you can describe using adjectives what that cat looks like. So instead of just saying cat, you can say fluffy white cat. Automatically, a reader is going to have a picture of a fluffy white cat pop into their mind. So now you're creating a better picture for them and better understanding. Instead of just saying a man, you could say timid Mr. Jones. So now, not only have we used a proper noun to give more interest, but we've also used an adjective. We described him as timid, so we understand something about his personality or his character traits. Using just that one word, timid, we've given our reader a lot of information about our character, Mr. Jones. So we're going to compare these 2 sentences. The cat followed the man to the store. The fluffy white cat followed timid Mr. Jones to Costco. The second sentence gives us much more information about the cat and Mr. Jones, and we also still use some noteworthy nouns, Mr. Jones and Costco, to give more detail and information to our reader. Okay, so we want to focus on using those awesome adjectives to describe our nouns and still fitting in proper nouns when it's appropriate. And notice you can still use an adjective to describe a proper noun. So even though we used Mr. Jones, we still use an adjective to describe Mr. Jones. So that way we got to use adjectives and nouns to be more descriptive with our writing. There is a video in your writer's notebook that you can watch this week. After you've watched this video, you can come back to your writer's notebook and continue working, or you can even explore some more adjective videos on YouTube if you have some extra time. That's up to you. But here's one video that I have selected for you that you can watch. And the first assignment in your writer's notebook is very similar to the first assignment that you had in your writer's notebook last week. So you have this table here, and on one side you have some adjectives. Now, these are kind of boring adjectives: good, big, small, mad, happy, purple, quiet. We want to use awesome adjectives. So we want to come up with adjectives that mean the same thing, but are more descriptive and more interesting for our readers. So you're going to take the adjective. So for example, good has already been done for you. The adjective good. And you're going to find as many adjectives as you can that mean the same thing. So they're synonyms, but are more interesting. So for good, our list is excellent, awesome, amazing, superb, marvelous, exceptional. If you need some help, there is a link here that you can click on and it will take you to a kid's thesaurus. So if you click on the link, it will take you to this thesaurus and you can type in the word that you're working with. So there's good. And it's going to show you some synonyms here. Okay, the ones that are in the darker yellow are the better synonyms, the ones that are closer to the original meaning of good. And as they get lighter, they're the meanings tend to get a little bit less close to the original word you were looking for. So try and use the ones that are in the darker yellow or orange. Okay, so you can pick one from this list if you get stuck. Okay, if you get stuck, go to that list and let it help you out. The next assignment in your writer's notebook is taking the sentence, the car drove down the street. It's the same sentence we worked with last week. We focused on the nouns last week, and this week we're going to focus on adding adjectives. So I changed the sentence to the gigantic dirty car drove down the narrow street. So I described car by calling it gigantic and dirty, and I described the street by calling it narrow. Now, you can also practice upgrading your nouns to noteworthy nouns. You can list a specific type of car and a specific street if you want to get more detailed. But I really want you to focus on getting those awesome adjectives in. And notice that I used 2 adjectives to describe car. You can use 2 adjectives together to describe one noun. Okay, you don't just have to use 1 adjective. So you're going to rewrite that sentence 4 times using different adjectives, and then you can challenge yourself by also upgrading the nouns. The next assignment is taking the sentences, the boring sentences on the left, and adding awesome adjectives to make it more exciting, to describe those nouns. I also want you to highlight the noun and change the font to red. So you notice in this sentence, I highlighted kids, changed the font to red. I'd highlighted zoo and changed the font to red. Then I rewrote the sentence. The ecstatic kids were excited to go to the loud, busy zoo. Again, I put the link to the thesaurus here in case you get stuck and need some help finding some awesome adjectives. So for each one of these, identify the nouns first. That's going to help you because the adjectives are going to describe the nouns. So before you can pick your adjectives, you need to know what noun you're describing. So first find the nouns, change their font to red, and then rewrite the sentence using adjectives to describe those nouns. And here you have a similar sentence to the sentence that was in your writer's notebook last week. Last week you upgraded the nouns. This week you are going to use adjectives to describe the nouns that are highlighted in red. So you do not have to add an adjective in front of every noun that you find in this sentence. You just need to add adjectives in front of the ones that have already been highlighted in red for you. You can use the paragraph that you already edited last week, or you can start fresh with this paragraph. Again, there's the link for the Kids Thesaurus if you need some help finding some awesome adjectives. So for example, if you were going to use an adjective to describe balloons and you were thinking, oh, red balloons. Instead of just saying red, you can go to the thesaurus, type in the word red, and it will give you some different awesome adjectives for the word red. It might be crimson or scarlet. So you can start also expanding your vocabulary when you are looking for awesome adjectives. And finally, the last assignment in your writer's notebook for the week is to write a paragraph responding to the prompt. Write to tell about the most memorable birthday gift you have ever received. So you're going to insert a text box and write a short paragraph in response to the writing prompt. You can copy and paste the paragraph from last week's notebook if you want to edit that paragraph and just add adjectives to it. That's fine. That's a great practice in revising your writing. You can also start a brand new paragraph if you would like. That's up to you. Just remember to use descriptive nouns in red font and then add awesome adjectives to describe those nouns in a blue font. It would certainly save you time probably if you copied and pasted your paragraph from last week here and then focused on adding adjectives to the nouns you've already identified. And again, it's a good practice for learning how to revise or edit your writing. Now, you've already had a week of working in your writer's notebook from last week. And last week I gave you a kind of a timetable to help you pace your work in your writer's notebook. You can use that same type of timetable this week, or you can complete more assignments on day 1 or day 2 if you would like. Just make sure you have the writer's notebook done by the due date. You can rewatch this video as many times as you need for directions, or contact me if you need some clarification and directions.